grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hello, everybody. I am coming to you just as we finish all of our E3 coverage. Starting to lose my voice a little bit, so we're not going to do a regular full show. As you can probably hear from the intro and the title, this is going to be another review podcast with stuff that we had recorded specifically for the main podcast show, but there hasn't been a whole ton of news of geek news that wasn't gaming related, so we didn't necessarily think it justified a regular full podcast, and we're going to save the weird news because some of that stuff is kind of evergreen, and we're probably going to do it, I think, in 2 weeks, because we're still catching up. We've got a lot of other podcasts to work on for this coming week. I will be away visiting family for the following weekend, so we're going to have a lot of reviews and stuff pre-recorded for that, and I won't be available to record the news or the weird news that week. So we're looking at probably, I'm going to go with, July 11th when the regular show will return, and depending on how he feels, I think that's just after Birdman has his procedure in the hospital and he should be recovering. I think he said he wants to come back either that week or the next week, but there might just be one more solo show with me and then he's back. It might be a mega sort of show where we do a little bit longer depending on how he feels. But we also have a lot of other stuff in the works coming, so I just didn't think we had time to put together the main show, but these are reviews that would have been in the main show, and we're going to throw an extra one in here because we usually have 3. We're going to have 4, I think, here. So we're going to sort of, I think we'll do it like my review, his review, my review, Birdman's review again. And then we'll come back at the end and I'll sort of give a bit of a tease of what's going on. And then I'm going to stop talking so I can preserve my voice.
Basically using geeks.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
Our friends at Nintendo sent over the new Game Builder Garage. That is the learning / programming / make your own game engine tool thingy that was announced a little while ago and then sort of slept in and snuck in as far as release right around E3. And as we got a copy to check out, E3 was just getting into the swing of things. So we took about 4 or 5 days of playing and doing the tutorials in between watching and doing all of the press event stuff for E3. And I'm happy to say that I had some reservations initially, and this alleviated most of it. My initial worry was that this would be too hard or too convoluted for kids and families to get into, in that you worry that there's going to be too much math or there's going to be too much arbitrary or difficult concepts and interfaces to get, sort of acclimated to when you debut sort of a game building engine / learning game on any platform. And I'm happy to say they did a pretty good job of making sure that it was never too difficult or never you're not going to lose interest while playing. Now, it is broken up into two different modes. The first mode is the learning/tutorial, the real edutainment factor for it. This is where it teaches you how to program, and I'm going to say that loosely in that program in quotes. It's a scripting language. It's also you built in using like learning tutorial bits that you're going to be given very concrete games to make that are part of the tutorial system. And then there's some parts where you can, experiment or figure out how certain things work. All these different nodes do different things. They're the equivalent of pre-scripted, pre-programmed libraries and actions. So, like a node might be this node is to allow characters to jump, or this node is to allow for the physics of the room, or that sort of thing. And it does explain how they work, and they all sort of connect together. And what you end up building with this is a flowchart of sorts, a logical flowchart that shows from beginning to end how you scripted the game's logic to work, how the world will be pieced together, and how all of the actions and functions work within the parameters of the game you're creating. So they're actually pretty good at explaining it. I could see this as something that a family would sit down and, parents would work with kids, and they'd be like, what do you want to make? And they'd be like, I want to make a Mario style game. And you go, okay, well, let's look at the tutorials. How do we do it? And then you jump into the other mode, which is the free mode, where you're programming your own games and creating them. Now, the best way I can describe this is I took a bit of programming in high school. Now, we're going back about 20 years or so. But when I was taking the courses, one of the entry-level programming tools we use, I had already I taught myself how to use QBasic, Microsoft Basic, because I wanted to make my own RPGs like Final Fantasy, like older style ones. So I learned how to do a tiling system. And if you sat me down in front of it, it would probably eventually come back to me where I remembered how I made my own tile-based system. I even learned how to do parallax scrolling from doing some tutorials online. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a ton of resources out there for QBasic, which was pretty much on its last legs. But that was how I learned basic programming. And then we started taking other courses that taught us things like Pascal, and then I think Java was new at the time, so that was the new hotness we were learning. Well, if you took one of the basic entry-level courses in high school, you learned on a tool or a programming language, scripting language called Turing. And it was meant to get you acclimated to what programming is. And in that program, it had a lot of things like, here's a rocket ship, here's all these basic tools, these basic sprites and logic tools. And it was for the PC, I think maybe it was a DOS-based program, or maybe it was a Windows-based, 98-based or something. But it did a lot of the same things that Game Builder Garage does, only not quite as intuitive. You did have to have a high school level education to really get it, and that's what it was. It was that sort of edutainment, learning, programming, scripting language, and it's very similar to this, except this is a lot more robust and has all of that Nintendo polish on it. I could see a lot of people getting interested in this. This is Nintendo's version of Dreams, that sort of thing, only a little more focused. You can't go and create your own textures and all your own assets. You're basically stuck with what is built into the game, and they could be releasing updates to it in the future to get more assets and more aspects to it, which would be interesting. But as it stands, it's actually pretty easy to follow along with the education mode, the learning mode. And I am not going to be somebody that sits down and plays hours and hours and hours and hours to build my own custom games. But I did end up making a very simple, run and jump sort of style game, just to get myself acclimated to the world. I would love to see, the creations of many other people, because you can share them in this game. I think it's pretty cool, and it was released as a budget title, so it's not a huge investment when it comes to putting out a ton of money into something that you maybe aren't sure you're going to get a ton of use out of. I could see this being a lot of kids' first foray into programming and game design and game development. You're not going to have to be heavily learning programming commands or anything. It is all drag and drop and production through there. It is very well done in the pacing of the tutorials, and I want to see, all the different creations that people can make in the future. You might want to check it out. I think it's sort of gone under people's radar because of the release right around E3, but this could be something that a lot of families would get into. And, parents, if you're looking for something for your kids, it's like educational that they won't realize is educational, this is probably what you want.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Hey guys, Mike the Birdman here, and yet again, I am here to bring you another review from Paramount Home Entertainment, this time coming to us on Blu-ray. And well, as you guys know, I've taken the last couple of months off to recover from various surgeries, so that means, well, I've got a lot of spare time on my hands, and fortunately the good folks at Paramount Home Entertainment have decided to provide me with some entertainment. And the movie we're going to be looking at today is one I'm actually kind of surprised we're covering, but one I really enjoyed when I saw back in theaters all the way back in the 2000s. And that is the Amanda Bynes comedy, She's the Man. You might be thinking, really, Mike, She's the Man? Well, this is the first time it's ever been on Blu-ray, and this is the 15th anniversary of it, so you know what, why the hell not? I remember seeing this in theaters with a girlfriend at the time, and remember just really enjoying it. I've always been a big fan of Amanda Bynes, though when she had her troubles later, let sleeping dogs lie. Hopefully she'll come back to the limelight sooner or later. I'm sure she's getting her stuff kind of figured out. However, there would be some people in this movie that I would come to really like as actors later on. In fact, this is Channing Tatum's, not his first movie, but his first really big one, where he kind of stood out from the crowd. And also the Red Power Ranger from Power Rangers SPD, which is my probably third favorite series. It goes Mighty Morphin, RPM, and then SPD. But anyway, yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. So if you're so inclined, you can go to any number of stores right now, buy the Power Rangers Lightning Collection, Red Ranger, and you can have a little dude reenact your scenes, because I'm sure there's Amanda Bynes action figures almost. But anyway, let's talk about the movie. So this is actually a weird update to Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. And if you're not into classical literature, or literature from well before the advent of electricity and most modern sciences, basically it breaks down to somebody's in disguise, another person's in love with another, and there's crossed wires. That's basically what it comes down to. But in the modern interpretation, Amanda Bynes plays a girl named Viola, who isn't seen as good enough to play on a boys' soccer team, so she takes her brother's place. Well, he goes over to England to go join a band showcase or whatever, and hilarity ensues as she decides to cross-dress. And this is a movie that's kind of gotten a lot more attention in the last couple of years. I mean, I've read a couple of online articles about how this movie's legacy has been perceived within certain communities, and I think that's really cool. So the movie itself, it's actually entertaining as shit. I think it's funny. I think it's a good time. I really do. Now, the special features leave a little bit to be desired, because they're all, as far as I can tell, just ports of the older features that came out earlier. Because they're not in high def, they're all standard def. There's nothing that kind of dates it. One thing I did like is random David Cross. I'm a big fan of him because of Arrested Development. So there's that. There's also a digital copy of the film if you're into that sort of thing. So you're probably asking yourself, is this movie worth picking up? Like I said, I had a lot of fun with it. I've always been a big fan of those kind of turn off your brain teenage comedies. And this does have some nerd cred, like I said, with Channing Tatum, Mr. 21 Jump Street, G.I. Joe, both movies until they unceremoniously killed him. And the Red Power Ranger from Power Rangers SPD. But yeah, ultimately, it's a fun movie. It's a lot of nostalgia. Lord knows we need to smile more these days. So check out She's the Man from Paramount Home Entertainment.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
For the last couple of weeks, I've been trying out the Creative SBS E2900. What is that? That is the newest 2.1 Bluetooth speaker system from Creative Labs. Previously, we checked out their Pebble Plus, which was the USB powered small desktop 2.1 system. It had a smaller subwoofer and these little little spherical angled left and right speakers that were pretty good considering the form factor for as far as the clarity and how loud they could get. But this is more of a traditional desktop setup with slightly larger speakers, a larger subwoofer, and a whole heck of a lot more features. I ended up using it as my main go-to while watching all of the E3 and gaming trailers and stuff, because I wanted to see, like, you know, how would it perform if you wanted to have it as a basic 2.1 set for PC gaming. And it turns out pretty good considering. I wasn't, to be honest, completely expecting much, because at $100 US MSRP, you don't normally expect a heck of a lot when it's a 2.1 set that, you know, would have a lot of clarity or a lot of features, or a lot of times it'll be like, oh, the build quality will be crap at that price point. But honestly, it's pretty good. Both speakers connect using an RCA style connector to the back of the subwoofer, which also, it's almost like a modern day boombox. It doesn't have like a CD player or anything like that in it, but it does have an FM radio built in, and there is an external antenna that you can attach to it to get an FM antenna working to pick up pretty much anything. I picked up about 6 channels with the subwoofer being underneath my desk, and I am in an apartment where I'm technically half underground because I'm on the first floor, which is like half built into the side of a hill with how the apartment building is, and I don't usually get great reception down here, and it picked up about 6 or so stations, which is pretty good considering. It also has Bluetooth capabilities, so you can pair it to your phone, pair it to anything else. I ended up pairing it to my NVIDIA Shield TV and used it as an audio source instead of going through my main surround sound set that I usually do, to do a bit of a comparison. And it didn't seem to have like any big latency or anything, so it's pretty good when I was watching videos where like there wasn't anything out of sync or anything, which sometimes can be a factor with speaker sets that I found. A lot of times you don't see it with headphones, but sometimes with speakers you'll find that kind of a delay going on when you're watching audio video. You won't notice it obviously when you're just listening to music, but I wanted to test that, and it seems to be pretty adaptive and fast for that. The big feature here for me is it comes with a remote, and most computer desktop 2.1 sets are manual only in that you have to reach and dial the volume and everything, but having it be on the subwoofer, at first I was like, oh, that could be problematic with all the buttons on there, especially if you're somebody who's going to be putting it on the ground, as most people will. But the remote that it comes with is pretty straightforward. You can use it to change your inputs, you can use it to fast forward your music, control, if you're using Bluetooth, it can control the file playback, pause, rewind, fast forward, select track, that sort of stuff. Or if there's depending on the piece of software that you're using or a playlist or anything, you can change tracks based on the number pad that's on it. There's mute, but this becomes a large factor in that you could potentially use this, and where this is probably going to end up for us is as television speakers. If you don't have a big surround sound set, or if you like your TV, most TVs now have kind of crappy audio. They're just so thin and it sounds so tinny. And some people use sound bars, but this is better than a sound bar because you can place the speakers where you want to place them, and you're always going to get better audio out of full-size speakers and subwoofer than you will from a simple small sound bar. So at around that $100 price point, you're then competing with entry-level sound bars, which usually sound like crap for the most part. As far as the frequency response, it's not fantastic. It's not like you're not getting like I'm comparing it to my surround sound set where I bought speakers that it's like a $500 set that I personally piece by piece put together versus $100 all-in-one speaker set here. But it sounds way the heck better than a lot of speakers for your computer in that range. So it's probably going to end up at my mother's place. She has a television in her spare room with really terrible audio, and there's not really a spot to put a like sound bar below it, but there is a way to sort of position speakers in there and have a subwoofer on the ground. And the ability to have a volume up and down is fantastic because this does have an auxiliary in. So the auxiliary in it comes with a actual cable. You see like a PC cable that's a headphone jack that's green ends on it. Pretty standard stuff. I would, to be honest, replace it with my own. Pay like $5 and buy a different cable. I found the cable that it comes with to be a little loose and a little staticky. And it's not just this device, because I use that. I tried plugging it into my headphones that have removable cables and plug that into my go-to, like my iPod and stuff, and it still had a bit of the staticky sound. It wasn't making a proper connection. I don't know if it was just the cable they bundled with mine, but it appears to be an extra as an afterthought. The main goal of this, I think, is to use it mostly as a Bluetooth 5.0 speaker set, but I did go ahead and use a better cable, one of my own that's a little longer too. That's like a 2-meter auxiliary cable, and it sounded much better. So if I had any gripes with the set at all, it's that I don't think that the auxiliary cable it comes with is very good, and you're going to want to probably toss that, leave it in the box, and pick up another one, but which is fine. For $10 or so, you can get yourself a nice braided, shielded cable that's a lot better than the cable that it comes with. As far as anything else to talk about on it, it's pretty standard frequency response. It sounded pretty clear. You can go through and change the tone. You can raise the bass and treble and so on. Volume-wise, it's nice and bright on the screen. It shows you if you're into having lighting and LED, it does light up and it'll sort of flash and do that kind of fun stuff. For me, that's not usually something I'm into. So having the speaker on the subwoofer on the ground out of the way, I'm not going to notice it. But somebody, if you want to have it a little flashy, you could put it on a table, or you could put it in a room where it really is sort of a showpiece for you. It's not, the highest end of programmable LEDs or anything. It's just sort of what's built into it. But it's nice to have, and it's not overdone. It's got a nice aesthetic to it. There's a little bit of weight to the actual subwoofer, and the satellites are not nearly as cheap as I thought that they were going to be based on build quality. So overall, pretty good for $100. Worth checking out, especially if you're looking for a set of speakers that you can use as something to really upgrade what your built-in audio for your laptop at your desk, or getting some audio for your PC, or even better, using it by plugging it into your television's headphone jack or your auxiliary jack on the back of your television, and using that as sort of your first or entry-level or spare room television audio.
after a lifetime of being the world's most famous enemies.
You can count on me like 1, 2, 3.
Tom and Jerry are about to start over.
'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do. Oh yeah.
In the big city.
Hey guys, it's Mike the Birdman, and I've got a review coming to us from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, and we're talking about Tom and Jerry the movie. Deja vu, I'm pretty sure there was one of these that came out in like the 90s, and it sucked. This one also sucks, because I don't know exactly who it's made for. Basically, Tom and Jerry, cat and mouse, the same old story, except now there's like a wedding and a hotel they're trying to invade, and it also stars Hit Girl from Kick-Ass and Michael Pena from the Ant-Man movies in Marvel. And honestly, I kind of don't know who this is made for. Sure, there's some pretty funny visual gags every now and again, but you kind of just don't know if it's meant for a kid or an adult, because there's a lot of mixed messaging here. I don't know who this is made for. The movie itself is a slog. I had a hell of a time getting through this. To talk about the disc itself, special features, pretty standard stuff, although a lot more in-depth than I expected for a kid's release. One of the ones I liked is where they looked at Jerry's apartment, which I thought was actually kind of neat, just how they presented it, kind of an in-universe sort of thing. They also do one on all the wildlife, which is all cartoons in this world, and there's your typical kind of gag reel making of, etc., etc. Nothing a super exception. I'm actually kind of surprised I didn't include some of the classic cartoons on here. I was like, hey, here's 5 episodes from every decade Tom and Jerry has existed in. So overall, can I recommend this movie? No, I really can't. Maybe if you have HBO Max, if you live in the States, sure, why the hell not? Or if this pops up on Netflix or something. But honestly, Tom and Jerry the movie, I cannot recommend this at full price.
Those magnificent bastards. Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's going to do it for the show this week. What do we have coming up? Well, let me pull up our schedule, because I have been busy, even between E3, all that coverage, which I'm kind of burnt out from. Next year, I'm hoping Birdman is able to pick up the slack and we do a yin-yang sort of thing where we watch the major publishers together, and then the indie stuff and the PC and all that sort of stuff, we flip a coin and see who has to watch either or. And maybe he runs a podcast or two without me, because it was a lot this year to go through, and I'm already losing my voice just from talking. Excuse me. So what do we have scheduled? We have on this coming Wednesday, we have another Earth versus Soup. This one is on Journey to the Center of the Earth, the 1959 movie. I will be guesting. I don't know if it airs this week, but I'll be guesting this week on the Nerd to the Third podcast, their roundup of E3. And then for sure, I'm done talking E3. I keep saying that, but it all depends on if Sony comes out with something soon. We just won't call it E3. We'll call it like the Summer Game Fest or something else instead. But that is what's coming this week. Next week, we'll have another review podcast on the Monday in the regular show's time slot. We will then have another Earth versus Soup on the movie Them, which is the 1954 horror sci-fi. I can't really call them horror films back then because they weren't scary, but classic B movie that following Wednesday. And then sometime in the next few weeks, I'll be recording another episode of the Sunday Funnies with JT, and I hope to, once my schedule calms down a bit and I've had a few days to just decompress from everything and get my voice back, be doing something with Aaron to discuss a couple of movies that we've already watched a little while ago, but we wanted to talk about on the next episode or two of Loose Cannon. And hopefully after that stuff is wrapped, that's when Birdman will be back and you can start to see him on regular programming again, and he'll take over for the Sunday Funnies, so it'll be on a more regular schedule because I know he likes to record at a monthly at a sort of specific intervals. I just haven't been able to because it's conflicted with a lot of other things that I've wanted to. And then we've got other shows in the works. We've got other reviews that we're working on. As for what we've got coming next week, I know Birdman has a few more movies he wants to go through. As for me, I have a review that I'm working on for Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX. That came in shortly before recording. I might briefly talk about a new version of the early access Industries of Titan that I talked about last year. Now it's on Steam with more stuff. Then we've also got an E3 released game that was sort of part of their indies showcases, and that's Dark Deity. I'm working on that. And I'm also working on some other stuff that's coming in the mail, but that I can't talk about just yet. And I know Birdman has some more. And we're getting closer and closer to the middle of summer when some more games are starting to come. We'll see how that goes. I'm not sure if we're going to be covering the Mario Golf game. We'll see about that. Hopefully we do. And then I know I've got the next Monster Hunter Stories game coming that I pre-ordered that. I don't know. It might just be a game I play for myself. If I can get through it really quickly and there's nothing else coming in review-wise, I might just do a review on it. If not, that might be a game that takes some time that it's just a play for fun game. It's been a while since I had a play truly for fun game that wasn't on sort of a deadline schedule to get through. So that is going to do it. That's what's up right now. I am going to go have some tea with lemon in it and see if that helps with my throat and my voice. And I will be, wait a minute. Actually, as on the 1st, so Canada Day, I'm getting my second vaccination shot. It was originally scheduled for the 31st, but I was able to move it up earlier because they opened up the ability to schedule earlier times if you have, if you're part of certain health categories, that sort of thing. And my mother and grandmother got theirs moved to today, as of when this is released, from the end of July. So they're getting theirs done. That means that most of my immediate family will finally be fully vaccinated within the next 2 weeks or so. My father already had his. My one grandmother already had her second shot. Then it's just waiting on my brother and his wife and their sort of family. And then my immediate circle will be completely covered. And hopefully that means once we've got all that settled and Birdman's out of the hospital, we'll be visiting in person again, which I haven't been over there, since like October or something, since I think Birdman's birthday. And when we had that sort of reprieve from before the second wave hit. And he's going to be getting his first shot. I think he got approval from his doctors that he's healthy enough to get his first shot. So once I got my second shot and he's got his first shot, we'll hang out. The first time will probably be just us hanging, but when we go back together again, maybe we'll record a commentary or something as sort of a victory of, oh my God, it's been like the better part of a year and we're hanging out again. That'll be fun. But that's happy news. I'm happy that it's happening. I would have wished I could have got my second shot even a week or so earlier than that, but I'm just happy that I get it a month earlier than originally expected. So that is going to do it for the show. I am going to sign off, like I said, and have some tea and relax, and I will be back later on with the Nerd to the Third podcast and another review show next week.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.